Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm here with Laura Randall from the Recovery Project. And Laura actually works in an area that I admit I know absolutely nothing about, which is why I'm really, really looking forward to today because I'm sure she is going to teach us a lot. So, we'll start with a saucy starter to Laura and get her to give you an insight into herself and what brought her here today. And then we were both actually discussing ADHD. So God knows where we'll end up, but we'll have a really nice long chat and give you guys some really awesome insights, hopefully, and then end with some takeaways from Laura. So, Laura, how are you? What brought you here today? And what led you to become an osteopath?
Hi, Amy. Thank you. That was a great introduction, and yeah, lots to get into. So yes, I am an osteopath. Osteopathy is quite a broad subject, but kind of nailing it into a nutshell, an osteopath is someone who can diagnose and help with musculoskeletal conditions. There's lots of
Yes.
different types of osteos. There's cranial osteos, there's functional osteos. I'm probably more like a mix between a physio and an osteo. So I offer hands-on treatment, but I also blend it with strength training and rehabilitation. And that kind of started from my own injury. When I was younger, I had a lot of back pain from falling off horses, which kind of got me into being treated by osteos and also physios with probably I'd say when I was younger, the majority hands-on treatment. So like soft tissue massage. I was given some rehab. It was kind of like, here's some stretches on a piece of paper kind of thing. And it
Yeah.
took me such a long time, but I kind of wanted to nerd my way out of it. And that's kind of how I got into strength training. So I tend to
Did
blend
you get
hands-on
here by trying
treatment.
to fix yourself, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended
Like
up
so
here.
many of
Yeah,
us. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, cool.
yeah.
So
And
strength training.
yeah, so that's why I created the Recovery Project, which is my business here in Cromwell. So I opened a new clinic in Cromwell in September, and I built a gym and two consult rooms, which meant I could bounce between going into the gym and a consult room. Because when I was contracting for other clinics, you would see a patient in a clinic with like a tiny room and a treatment bed, and trying to use videos or explain how to do things in the gym was really tough. And you spent your time in the car bouncing between the gym and bouncing and coming back to the clinic. So now I don't have to
Yeah.
leave. I can be exactly where I am and
Yes.
blend the two things that I love to do. Yeah, which is
That's
pretty
so
epic.
exciting. That's so good.
Yeah.
And I think that's from what you said about the musculoskeletal system,
Hmm.
mus I don't even think
Muscles.
I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because there's a big area there that like lots of people, so many people lose muscle as they age, and people don't even think about bone density.
I
So I've actually been doing
know.
deep dives into this at the moment. So actually things like jumping and aggressive movement, or even just
Mhm.
like you say, weight training, building the density of your bones as well as your muscle. People think about muscle because that's what you can see,
But
but they
bones
don't
is
think
even
about the
more
rest of it.
important. Yeah, and we
Yeah.
kind of hit our peak bone and muscle density around age 30. And after that, it becomes really hard to maintain our muscle and our bone density. Um, and that was just something I was seeing kind of getting glazed over in clinics all over New Zealand and also back in the UK as well. And I was seeing patients where I kind of get them to the space where they might feel better, like the pain might go, but the journey didn't stop there. So
There's no,
that
you're
kind of
fixing the symptoms, not the cause.
yeah. So pain and function kind of aren't. There's no relationship between kind of like how well you move and pain. So sometimes people can have awful injuries and not a lot of pain. And it can be the other way around as well. For example, someone can do like an ACL in their knee and have absolutely no pain, but there is definitely a lack of function and stability there. So most people kind of will
Yeah.
think that they have a huge amount of pain, and that must mean that their injury is really, really bad. But that is just not the case. And that's what we're trying to educate patients that there's two things is that, if something is really, really painful, it doesn't mean it's really injured. And that's, so if you have had pain, once you then feel a little bit more pain-free, that's not where the journey ends. We try and look at function, get them back to work, get them back to what they want to be doing. So there's quite a few strings to our bow and what we help with. But I just kind of got frustrated with kind of getting patients to the point that they were a little bit more pain-free. They would get better and then they would circle back into the clinic a few months or a year later and they were back in the same position. So we're just trying to catch them
So
to stop that from happening.
yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of, if it's fair to say, like people would be starting down here, you get them up to here and they'd circle back rather than you making active improvements. For
Yeah.
anyone watching the video, I'm trying to make a graph with my hands and a pen. But like, I think that's how so much the medical system is failing people, right? Because
Yeah.
even in the spaces I work in, or like, for example, people get injured and then they get overweight, and that puts even more pressure on their muscles
Mm,
and bones, and then they just about circle back to going to see a doctor, maybe going to see a standard
mm,
osteo or someone who can help,
mm,
just to bring them back up to baseline. And
mm.
yeah, they don't realize that actually, if they did a little bit more proactive recovery,
Yeah.
where they could be and how much more enjoyable life could be.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think with patients, the important thing is that they really understand what is going on and why they need to get better. The biggest reason I see people kind of going in this circle is they don't understand the why. They haven't really
Yeah.
figured out what they need to be better for. They just kind of want to be out of pain. But sometimes when you're getting better, you've got to do the things that are going to get you stronger. And as your body feels stronger and it feels safer, eventually those pain levels will come down. But if you just focus on the pain first and you're too
Yeah.
scared to move, they'll get stuck in this holding pattern. So we do have to do like a lot of education about what's safe to move through with pain, what to expect, and especially education on like how long it takes to make improvements. There's so many people who expect those quick fixes, and as an osteo, like traditionally when you go into an osteo, you might be given some hands-on treatments. They might get like something called an adjustment, which you might hear for like chiros and osteos, like have a click your back.
Yeah.
And people expect to come in, be clicked, and walk out 10 minutes later and they're all good. And I have lost
Yeah.
patients by sitting them down and going, hey, like this is what is
This
going
isn't
on,
a quick fix.
and this isn't a quick
Yeah.
fix. But they'll end up coming back in a year and they'll go, oh, yeah, okay, you were right.
I'm ready now. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you're ready
ready
now.
now.
So
It's just
they've just
taken
got
me
to
a
be
year to
ready.
psychologically get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
so
it's,
how do you do most of your clients come through doctor referrals or ACC, or are you totally private and independent? How does it work?
that is a great question, and a complete mix of all the above.
Okay.
So I'm still kind of relatively new to Cromwell in terms of my clinic. So I have been in Cromwell before September and I was contracting, but I was also working in Wanaka. In Wanaka, the
Yeah.
majority of my referrals were through doctors because I've been there for so long. The doctors knew me really well. I've started to grow a lot more on social media. So a lot of my patients will come through social media as
I
well, word
know.
of mouth.
You
So
look
it
great.
is like, thanks. Yeah. So it's a complete mix. So I am both private and ACC. So if anyone doesn't
Cool.
know what ACC is, for if you have like an injury in New Zealand, you will get a certain amount of coverage for your condition. It won't fully cover your treatment. And unfortunately, as osteos, we don't get a lot of funding. We don't get as much funding as a lot of other professions. So there will be a subsidy on top. So it kind of means we are under a little bit more pressure to make the changes faster because we don't have as much funding. But you can also flip it, and because people have to invest, sometimes they actually do make the changes quicker because they are investing. So, when they spend money, they're like, right, better put some action in.
When
Yes,
people pay, they pay attention.
right.
Yeah, it's a big,
Yeah.
big thing that I've battled with because for anyone who's done my program, they hopefully know how wonderful it is. And I would love to make it free. I'm
Mm,
still toying with the idea, just the program by itself, support separately. But the truth is, if you're not prepared to invest in your health, if you
mm,
haven't put money on the line, you're not prepared to invest time and your own energy, you're not
mm,
prepared to invest in yourself, the likelihood that you'll follow through with the behavior, the habits, the changes that you need to make are very, very slim. And I think that's the problem with, so you versus the doctor,
mm,
Laura, it's so
mm.
interesting, isn't it? They could go to the doctor, take pain pills.
Yeah,
They come to you and you're like, I could probably make you fully holistically better over the course of a year. You don't need
yeah,
to take pills, but it's going to take some investment on your part.
yeah. It's such a big thing. I think I do and have found in the past that when we have created free programs, I probably don't think we get as good results because you don't get that buy-in. It might be like someone that might have like a free program. It might be like on their email, they might touch into it. Like the people who really, really need it or are really ready, they'll get results because they'll do anything they can. They find a free program, they'll go into it. So I guess if you get a free program, I think you're going to maybe even wheedle out the people who are ready and the people who maybe aren't quite ready or haven't had that
Yeah.
education. It's a tricky one. I battle with that too. Because,
Yeah, because
when
I think,
people
like you
are,
say, it's all about education, isn't it?
mm, and when people are in pain and
Education.
they don't have the finances, it's a really, really tricky place to be. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to balance that, making it affordable, but also getting people to invest in themselves instead of,
What?
investing in something that might not help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of you probably deal with a lot of clients with chronic conditions, would you say?
Y- Yeah, I'd probably say 80% of my caseload is chronic pain,
Yeah.
which is a lot. And I never really intended to go in that direction. I've kind of accidentally fallen in that direction. I think as osteos, we're not well known for providing rehabilitation, and physios very much are. So to be able to treat the patients I wanted to treat, if I went more down the ACC pathway and tried to get more care, I couldn't compete with the programs that physios were offering. Whereas if I went down
Okay.
the chronic pain pathway, I could make a lot more changes, help patients more. So it was just the difference in systems from working in the UK to working in here that kind of led me down that pathway. And I love working with back, hip, and pelvic pain, and they kind of all jumble in a lot, and they
Yeah.
coincide together. And back pain probably is one of the most chronic pain conditions that we see coming in the doors. I'd probably say it's 80% of my caseload.
That's so interesting. And I want to touch on without completely losing the train of thought, but how much you think inflammation might have a part to play, because I work with a lot of clients where we completely overhaul their diet and their chronic pain goes away, which
Oh,
blows my mind.
100%.
Knees, hips, everything.
Yeah.
Do you talk to
Yeah.
patients about that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We actually refer out a lot to clinical nutritionists, dietitians, and to try and find the right fit. So, pain,
Yeah.
when it comes to chronic pain, there's not just one cause, there's multiple things. I kind of think about it as a recipe, and each person's recipe is different. But I think nutrition plays a massive part. I think it plays a huge part. I see a lot of women, probably the ages of like 50 plus. And I'd probably say maybe 70 to 80% of them are under eating. And
Under
that
eating.
cause under eating. Yeah, but they have no idea that they're under eating. Um, and
Oh, what sort of thing are they eating? Do you know?
rather than what they're eating, it's probably not eating, it's skipping breakfast, not eating until like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's avoiding
Intentionally,
carbohydrates
because they think they're fasting or trying to lose weight? Or
intentionally thinking they're fasting, trying to lose weight, but then they're also trying to increase their exercise load. For example, if someone comes to see me, we will be increasing their exercise load. So if they're also increasing their exercise load, we've got to make sure that they've got the energy availability for it. Um, and often they're trying to cut too many things out. And I think there's definitely, for example, I'll touch on the like the carbohydrate thing. I think there's definitely a time and a place for reducing carbohydrates, but in someone who's also not eating enough protein and just not generally eating enough food overall, it can be really, really tricky. Or having
yeah,
tiny portion sizes, and then they'll kind of get to the weekend and then they'll just like eat everything. So then
blow
they have
out.
this like
Yeah,
they'll
that's a
have a
lot of what I
blowout.
see.
Yeah, and then they have this inflammatory
Yeah.
overload. They come into the clinic on Monday and everything hurts again. Um,
And they beat
so
themselves up. So psychology will have a huge part to play in pain.
yeah, and it's really tricky. Like I
Yeah.
actually have sent some patients away to go and work with nutritionists. I'm like, go and work with a nutritionist, get your food sorted, and come back when you're ready. Because it's really hard for us to make those changes if someone is under eating. Um, because they're going to
So
be
interesting.
super
It's under
tired.
eating because I
Under
didn't think that
eating.
would be the issue.
Yeah.
We and
Well,
what I see is obviously most women come to me to want to lose weight.
mhm.
Um, but like you say, they're probably under eating or they perceive they're under eating. They're trying to fast. They're maybe eating
Mm,
a sandwich or some rice crackers. The big issue
yes.
I have is they're probably eating about 40 teaspoons of carbohydrates a day in like rice crackers and
Yes.
healthy food,
Healthy.
but they
Yeah.
are not eating nearly enough protein, like half as much protein as
Right.
what they need, if that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
protein is one of the biggest building blocks for our muscle. Their
Hmm.
muscle's wasting away, even if they're trying
Hmm.
to work it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Ah, yeah, preach. That's something I hear all the time. And it's so tricky because
Yeah.
we kind of get people coming into the clinic and they go, oh, I don't want to have these like massive muscles. I'm like, do you know how long it takes to build those massive
How long it takes to
muscles?
build muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of
Oh my
comes back
gosh.
to the education, and we kind of try and get people relating to their energy and how they're feeling. And that can be really tricky because just so many of them just aren't dialed into listening to their body, which is a really tricky thing.
Mm.
Um,
It's taken
so
me until I've been about 35 or maybe a
oh
few
yeah,
years ago.
oh
But
yeah.
honestly, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think
taken a
all of
hot
us,
minute.
I don't think we'll ever stop learning. I think that's something we've just got to keep knowing that like we're never going to be 100% in understanding our body because our life changes. Like we have seasons of life and we've got to continue adapting to that. And I think like a big
Yeah.
value of mine is trying to get patients to have resilient bodies and knowing that
Yeah.
their body is designed to go out of balance and they've got the tools to maintain that and change things when they go out of balance. There are going to be times in your life when you push more. There are going to be times when you like step back more. And I think people try and focus on being perfect all the time and always feeling pain free and feeling good. And I think it's just really unrealistic. Um, and I try and educate
Yeah.
patients that pain can actually be a good thing. It's your body's perceived sense of threat. And so it's trying to tell you that something's going on, whether that threat is real, whether your body thinks it's a threat, or if it is actually something that is going on. So it's designed to be there. And if we didn't have it, I'd probably actually be a little bit more worried. So yeah, it's just trying to get people to
That's
show
so
them
true.
they have skills to deal when kind of life throws shit at them. They can manage it and help
It's
themselves.
that's a big sort of journey I suppose I went on being pregnant last year.
Yeah,
It's
so
hilarious
cool.
because you're like everything shifts. Like
Yeah,
your
you have a
hips start to
whole new
move.
body. Yeah.
Oh, your pelvis. Like my ribs and my hips are still
Hmm.
much bigger. So
Yeah.
Charlie's nearly 1 year old.
Hmm.
Yeah, I should probably come and see you and listen, like see what you've got to say because it's hilarious. Like I'm a similar quote body fat percentage according to
Hmm.
the scanner, but my genes, holy shit, they will not do up,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting the way things can move and shift. And there was a good amount of pain there for a while because your bones are literally moving.
Hmm.
But it's understanding that sort of thing. So if you are pregnant, if you're so what is it? It's more a relaxin, the hormone that pregnant women get that actually
Hmm.
make everything shift and move. And then it all starts to go back. So then there's some funny pain afterwards too. And it's rebuilding your body after,
Yeah.
your body's broken down everything it possibly can to feed the little baby and to let you relax and grow for a year. And I think that's so apart from women over 50, what I think a lot of women fall prey to as well is it's called postnatal depletion.
Yeah.
So after they have a baby, rather than trying to build their muscle mass back up and make themselves will feel really strong, which is what I
Mm.
focused on. Thank you to some of the women I saw on Instagram who were like, focus on strength, just trust me. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that looks like a good tactic. Building that muscle up around your moving bones and organs without being too aggressive. And so many women are like, I need to get
Mm.
smaller. I'm gonna undereat.
Yeah.
I can imagine it causes all forms of issues.
Yeah, so many. And I think it's such a huge journey to go through with pregnancy. And we kind of forget that we almost have like completely new anatomy. Your pelvis is different,
Yeah.
and people try and get back to what they were before. And I try and get them to think about building something that's new.
So do
That
you work
imp
with women postpartum?
I do. So I
Nice.
work more in the strength realm with women. So
Yeah.
I have worked with a lot of hip and lower back pain patients. So I work quite closely with a lot of pelvic floor physios, for example, like Lisa Carney and
Oh yeah.
Monica. And we've also got Nikki and Cromwell here.
Yeah.
So I more work with specifically pregnant women who've had issues with their hips, or if they might have had a disc issue or something like that before pregnancy. So yeah, more work kind of post-pregnancy in terms of, yeah, help rebuilding strength and giving it a little bit more confidence in their body, um, and moving forward that way. And yeah, it's just, I don't think we give ourselves enough time and also enough,
No.
it's a huge process that you've been through, and it's like an amazing process. Like our bodies have the most amazing ability to carry a baby and adapt and then grow this little human. And you have this baby, and not only are you looking after a little baby, but you're also rehabbing your own body. It's like, imagine if you broke your leg and then someone handed you a baby, like you'd be like, what? Your body has to heal. So you're under so much
Yeah.
pressure. And I think we forget what an achievement it is to do that. But yeah, definitely work with pregnant women as well. Pre and post pregnancy, I'd probably say mostly post pregnancy. Yeah.
And I wonder, just hypothesizing here, how many of the
Hmm.
women in their 50s
Mm.
or 60s that end up with you are women who rushed into losing weight or just got too busy with motherhood, had some kind of pain or issue that they just did not think about and just
Hmm.
rolled through the next decade and then now like, ow, everything
Yes.
hurts. And then your hormones change with menopause, inflammation
Yeah.
increases, and then it all turns to
100%.
custard.
Yeah. You know what? I was actually thinking that the other day because especially like when women in their 50s and beyond come and see us, it's more than just what they're coming in to see us for. There's so much that's going on a deeper level. And it can stem right back to when they had kids. And we didn't, or they didn't
It so
have
often
the,
does.
yeah, and they didn't have the access to what we do now. Like, I'm very fortunate in the fact that research has moved on a lot and we have access to things like social media. We have video calls. I can do a consult with a patient the other side of the world, whereas they didn't have that. And a lot of our patients will feel quite lonely, that they had to deal with a lot that was going on behind closed doors. Maybe they were too embarrassed to talk about it. So on a deeper level, like they might come in for some back or hip pain in their 50s that could have stemmed back from childbirth, that they had these issues and never really dealt with them. And it's manifested into all sorts of things that maybe they were then trying to lose weight. They might then undereat. Then they might have this fear of movement because they're undereating. They don't have as much energy. If they don't have as much energy, then movement's going to feel more painful, maybe more vulnerable. And that's your body trying to tell you, almost give you like a warning system. Hey, like, let's put an engine light on. You need to do something about this. And yeah, they might listen to the engine light and go, oh, something's wrong. But then they don't have the connections or the ability to kind of get
They don't
through
have the
that.
mechanic there to help,
Yeah,
like the
so
instruction
that's
manual.
exactly. So we're trying to help patients relate to the symptoms and to understand what those symptoms are, because a lot of the females don't realize that it is a problem until you start talking about it. And that's why things like podcasts and social media are so important and can be so beneficial. Um, and I talk to a lot of my patients about this. Like, I take some hip and knee arthritis courses, and the majority of the uptake has been females, and all, yeah, 50 plus and beyond. And I've probably discussed with every single one of them something about childbirth in their past, which is insane.
Yeah, it is so interesting. And actually, I'm going to call a few friends out here. The
Yeah.
amount of friends who deal with stupid stuff like casual incontinence and find it funny. I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
no, like deal with it now because it's that kind of issue that probably stems from something a lot deeper, I
Mm,
reckon.
yeah.
Um, a lot to do with their core strength, their musculoskeletal system,
Mm,
and again, banging on about their nutrition. But you can tell me. So, one issue that I believe is fueling the obesity epidemic or
mhm,
women struggling with energy and feeling rubbish and not being able to handle their hormones and their hunger and satiety and
mm,
their energy levels is sarcopenia. So
mm,
losing muscle as we get older because A, we're not using our muscles as much. We don't have to physically wash our clothes like we used to. We don't have
mhm.
to mill the grains to make bread like we used to. We don't
Yeah.
have to walk to find food. We
Yeah.
barely have to move. So our muscles are wasting away. We're chronically under eating protein.
Yeah.
I reckon
Yeah.
that's half the reason a lot of people, or women, I should say, end up in your clinic because also we've been taught that I said something a while ago,
Mm.
feminized diet, your feminized diet is making you fat.
Yeah.
And everyone was a bit like, oh, you can't say that. But it's so true. As women, we get told we need to like eat a green smoothie and
Yeah.
fruit. But
Yeah.
steak and eggs is like far too manly. That's gonna,
Yeah.
like you say, quote, make us bigger.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
No.
Oh my goodness, we're definitely on the same page on this one. Yeah, it's a really tough one and I totally agree. I think there's a massive, also, yeah, fear of movement. I think we definitely need to do a little bit more. I think a lot of females are now aware that we do need to do more, but it's the systems for what they need to do next. So, if someone doesn't come to me and they end up with their GP will just go, okay, right, you need to move more. And they're like, cool, like I know that already. Like, how? Um,
Yeah, like literally, what do I do?
yeah, exactly. So it's trying to give them the bullet points on exactly what they need to do, and kind of give them the bare minimum. Like a big issue I see with females coming in the clinic is they're trying to walk as much as they can because we all know that walking's really good for us and it's amazing for our heart
Yeah,
health. It's really good for our brain health. But unfortunately, walking is not enough. It's not enough to build bone density, and there is only so much your glute muscles and your hip muscles can adapt and build to walking. Like it will just hit a point and you're probably not going to get as much growth. So then females, they kind of get
yeah,
to that point when they're not growing, and then they increase their walking. So I see a lot of females coming in with something called a glute tendinopathy, which is where they have pain at the side of their hips. And then we'll
yeah,
ask them, right, okay, I think we need to do a bit of strength training and a little bit of cross training. And that can be quite tricky for them because they're like, right, well, I'm in pain. Like, why should I do more? And it's kind of going, right, well,
yes.
we need to change the dosage for a bit. And that's all it is. We just need to increase the dose of something else that's a little bit different. That increase in
Increase the
dosage,
strength. And would you agree range of
yeah,
movement?
yeah, 100% range of movement. I think a lot of range of movement comes from strength. So if your
Yeah,
body feels safe and strong, if you've got muscle, your everything can naturally relax. Whereas if your body doesn't feel like you can control a joint, the nervous system is going to tense up to stabilize it. That's a very kind of layman's words of explaining it.
it's
So
so interesting.
yeah, so patients will come in being like, oh, I feel so stiff and sore. And I'm like, and I've been trying to stretch and do all these things, but I'm not getting better. And it's because your body doesn't trust the stability in that range of motion. So there's definitely a difference between stability and mobility. Um, and there's 100% a time and a place for things like stretching. But if we don't have enough strength, your nervous system is never going to relax. Um, and that's another really tricky one. So 100% agree with range of motion, but I think range of motion comes hand in hand with strength. I keep dropping a headphone. Sorry, it doesn't
um,
quite fit my
that
ears.
no, well, if anyone's thinking I sound very spacey today, I was just telling to Laura, I lost my mic and I've had a bit of a disaster the last 24 hours. To be honest, talking about nervous systems, we do
We made
stupid
it in.
stuff when we're tired, when we're burnt out. Yesterday,
Yeah.
I reversed into a guy's ute in the daycare car park. Luckily, he had like
Oh
the
my
biggest steel
goodness.
bars known to man, and it didn't make a dent. And this morning, can you see this? I've got a giant cut on my forehead. I just smashed my head, just
Oh
putting
my
away my
goodness.
trainers. Like the things we do when we're tired and stressed out and burned out,
Yeah.
which
Uh,
I don't mind admitting. But
mhm.
just before we move on to that, and Laura, I want to dive into your ADHD diagnosis in a minute. But before we move on to that, that's very interesting what you said about having strength, having muscle, having confidence
Mhm,
in your body, because
mhm.
I've, quote, accidentally gained a lot of muscle over the last 2 years.
Mhm.
So around 5 kilos, um, just based on consistency of strength training, I would say eating two 2 grams of protein per
Yeah.
kilo of body weight ish. So about
Yeah.
150 grams of protein a day, 100, oh
Oh.
no, I should be eating about 130. But I read a study years ago that was like they did an experiment and a fat loss experiment, and people who got to eat unlimited protein um, didn't gain any body fat.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, they actually
Yeah.
lost fat, which is
Yeah.
really interesting. So I think it's an amazing macronutrient, but it's very interesting you say that because I do feel very strong and
Hmm.
stable. And I
Hmm.
constantly think about it when I'm picking Charlie up off the
Yeah.
ground. Like
Yeah.
when you have a baby, you need to sit on the ground with them, pick them up, and stand up like a freaking Turkish get up. I
Right?
honestly don't know how. If you're an unfit mum, I reckon you're causing yourself so much more pain because I struggle. I'm not that strong,
Yeah.
but like having a base of strength and fitness makes me feel so much more
Mm,
capable in daily life,
yeah.
I suppose you should say.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
confident, I guess.
Oh,
Confidence is a
but
big
with
thing.
I'm doing it all. Yeah, confident,
Yeah.
exactly. So even doing it all, good nutrition, good movement.
Yeah.
Laura, someone told me recently, a number of people have told me that I need to go and get diagnosed with ADHD. I hear you've been down a similar path. Tell me more.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very recent thing. I've actually got my last call with my doctor in Dunedin next week, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
This has been a long time coming, and it's been a process that I've kind of dipped in and out of and considered for a while. And I think the tip of the iceberg for me was opening a business, and I was trying to do a lot of things at once, and my energy was split in many different directions. So I think my symptoms became a little bit more obvious. So a number of my friends, even one of my patients, they started pointing out the symptoms to me. Um,
What did
and
they point out? Do you mind me saying?
yeah, great
Asking?
question. So I'm very passionate about what I do. I can concentrate for hours. The problem is I can hyper concentrate for hours and then suddenly I'm knackered and I can't do anything. Um, I can do 100 different tasks at once. I can sometimes get pretty forgetful when I move task to task. Um, and I pride myself as a pretty good listener. And I know when I stop listening or if I haven't heard something, something is going on. And I remember a patient talking to me about their symptoms, and I was suddenly like, "Oh my God, sorry, can you say that again? Because I don't think I really took that in." And to me, that was quite a big shock because like I love what I do, and I like to give a really good service. So yeah, that was a big thing, and I think it is a tricky thing because with ADHD, I think we know it's a spectrum. And I
Yeah.
think we are all slightly on the spectrum. And I kind of put it down to that. I was like, I've opened a business. I'm really busy. And one of my friends was like, just go and do the consult. There is no harm in going to go and do the consult. So you first have to go to your GP to then be referred to a psychologist to then go through the process. And I worked myself up so many times. I booked a GP appointment and then cancelled it. I booked it and then cancelled it. And I was like, no, I'm going. And I was expecting to have this kickback of, no, like you're fine. And the GP was great. He was like, yeah, absolutely. I hear you. Like that must be really tricky. And I was like, oh my God, someone listen to me. Um, and
Yeah.
yes, when I had to go down to Dunedin and see the psychologist, we have 3 sessions. And in those 3 sessions, they ask you a bunch of different questions. They give you some questionnaires to actually go away and give to your family and friends, and then they fill it in as well. And just from the
Oh,
first
that's
session,
interesting.
from just filling in these boxes, I was just like, yep, 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 which was, yeah, it's eye-opening. I'm currently unmedicated. Um, I'm still unsure about being medicated. And the reason being is my family actually has a family history of brain aneurysms. And the problem with a lot of the ADHD medications is they can raise your blood pressure, which can be risky if you were to have an aneurysm.
Yeah.
So far, touch words, there's no sign of it happening in me, which is great. But again, it's still a risk that I'm just unsure if I'm willing to take. And so we're exploring and seeing if there are other options. Um,
So what are the
uh,
other options in medication?
yeah, great
Do you
question.
know?
I'm right in the thick of figuring that out. So you have access to different psychologists and counseling. So I've actually brought a number of different mentors on board to break down different areas of my life. So I have a business mentor. I also have a strength mentor. And I also have another mentor who I touch base with every now and then, and she can zoom out a little bit. So that's also almost like my kind of self-medication. That's helping breaking
Yeah.
everything down for me. I think there's lots of different options, but yeah, one of them is psychology and counseling, and I think that can play a massive part in helping people deal with symptoms. I definitely do think there is a time and a place for medication as well, and I just haven't figured that out yet. Um, but I have seen
Yeah.
it change people's lives. And I'm a little bit of a nerd and want to do a bit more of a deep dive and a little bit more research. So I'm kind of like, watch this space. We'll see what happens. But it's been quite a
Yeah, I'm so
relief.
intrigued.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah, I
nice to
can
know I wasn't imagining it. Yeah, which is
it
cool.
yeah, I think that validation is half the battle, eh? To know that you're not broken or it's not anything that you're struggling with alone. I think
Yeah.
what I struggle with, because I
Mm,
reckon I don't even think I need a doctor to tell
mm,
me. Um, my friends come back at me like those questionnaires that you said.
mm,
I feel like my
mm.
friends just look at me and they're like, "Oh man, there's no question."
Yeah.
But it's it's amazing because you can channel it so positively, like you said, like hyper focus, but it
Mm,
can also be very difficult, very distracting. It
mm.
can, in a lot of people, it can cause weight gain
Yeah.
because you're so distracted and you're so all over the place and you don't really know what's happening. The way I had to describe it to Scott this morning, I was like, it's kind of like my brain's on fire.
Yes.
Like you say, with
Oh,
all
I
the
can relate
different
to
things to
that.
do with business.
Yes.
Yeah, like all
Yeah.
the different things that are in my head,
Mhm.
like, and it's just trying to order them. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting what you said. I um I have to go out and exercise in the morning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm generally not a nice person to be around.
Mm,
It's like a puppy. I have to go and get that out of my system. And I think I handle it a lot better when I'm getting coaching. So when
yeah.
it's being channeled in a really good direction, and like you say, you've got someone to help you zoom out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really
So
powerful. Yeah, I think
yeah, mentors I think are a good
they're
strategy.
they're a huge thing. I think everyone's tools will be unique to them. You'll laugh at this. We have things called doom boxes in our house. So there's one in each room. And
Doom boxes.
yeah, when I'm overwhelmed, I don't deal very well with clutter. And so if I will suddenly need a clean surface, the kitchen needs to be clean. I need to have like a clean brain. And that's usually a sign that there's a lot going on in there and I'm trying to like streamline it out. So it means that I can put yeah, I can put everyone's stuff into a box and they know where to find it. Because I would
That's
try and clean
so
things away
funny.
and everyone would be like, oh my God, where's our stuff? Where's this? And yeah, so it's kind of like a coping mechanism, which I think is really cool. So everyone deals with it in their different ways. But I do think it can be a superpower. So what they're saying with me is that it's inattentive ADHD, which is slightly different to hyperactive. So I'm not that average person who, is like always switched on. I'm not an extrovert. I'm not chatting a lot. Um, I would probably say with the right person I am.
Yeah,
But
I think
you
it
know,
it comes out differently with different people, probably.
yeah, people say ADHD and they kind of think like young teenage boys who are just super hyperactive. So it's just very
Yeah, an
different,
eight-year-old running around.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Laura, I've got a big question for you.
Yes.
How much of you or I having ADHD, as you're slightly younger than me, aren't you? How old are you?
33.
33. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
35. So
Yeah.
women now mid-30s,
hmm
how much of our ADHD diagnosis do
hmm
you reckon is down to smartphones, trying to run a business,
hmm
trying to sit at a desk for a long period of time every day and the pressure? If we were
Mm.
to go and get a job, literally doing manual labor, like working in a farm or on a vineyard, do you reckon we would still be manifesting these symptoms?
You know what? That's a great question. And I've been asking
I
myself
think
that.
we're a product of society. I don't,
Yeah. I
does
would,
that make sense? I think there's a
yeah,
lot of research on like 8-year-old boys. We didn't
yeah,
used to make them sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. Now
yeah,
we are, and we're classing them with ADHD. And it's
yeah,
like, what?
yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's tricky, like,
That's
especially
why
if
I'm putting off medication, I think, because I don't think
same.
I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, it's a tricky thing. Like, how much could we do by breaking up our
Yeah,
day more, spending more time outside, or
exactly. I
yeah.
think
Mm.
I think it's a huge topic and that's a really big question. I think in today's society, we're expected to do more with our job roles. And on top
More
of
than
what we
ever.
more than ever, on top of what's going on in maybe our family life or that kind of thing, for me, a big game changer was getting into the gym and strength training because like that was my outlet. And Jono, my
Yeah.
partner, notices straight away. Like if I haven't exercised, he can tell straight away. And it's like I just can't communicate what's going on because it's all up here. And your brain needs that chance to figure out what's going on, and physically moving can just help your brain process and calm down, and feel good. And so I think it is really important if you are considering this diagnosis that you don't just think of it as a condition and that we think of it as something that is specific to you and your body. And you do
Something you're
have that,
experiencing almost.
yeah, something you're experiencing. So you don't
And that you
just,
have, I think there
yeah,
are a lot of tools that you can do to help yourself, I reckon.
yeah, yeah,
Try to.
absolutely. I think one thing that I got called out on with friends was when going through the process was kind of assigning myself with that diagnosis of kind of like using it as an excuse almost, being like, oh, I did that because of ADHD, or I did this. And that was quite tricky. And yeah, a lot of my friends called me out and they were like, no, you haven't eaten enough. Like you've had a really big day. Just remember to like step back and to zoom out. So I think it's part of a tool belt to have that awareness. And I think with a really pet with a with the right people and the right team for you, it can be very powerful to help you get to a better place. But it can be like opening Pandora's box. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
I
thinking
think it's a
about
box
going
I'm going to
through
have
it?
to open.
You're gonna open it? Yeah. I think, but you're in an amazing
I
place. You've
think
got lots
so.
of tools. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's making me feel very stuck, being very open and honest, is that I do all the tools. Like I exercise a lot just to make myself feel normal. I eat a diet that
Yeah.
I know is extremely good for my body, but perfectly balances my glucose levels so I'm not up and down because I have
Hmm.
felt that before. I
Hmm.
take a hell of a lot of calming supplements.
I love that.
L-theanine is my best friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do a lot already. And
Hmm.
I just think the other thing that I know I could do
Hmm.
is commit to less,
Yes.
empty my calendar.
Yeah.
And I think that would make a massive difference. But
Hmm.
you'll probably relate is, for example, filming this podcast today, I'm really excited and I find it really uplifting. But it's
Hmm.
another block in my calendar that on
Yeah.
some level stresses me out. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So it's a really fun,
Absolutely.
really positive thing. We're hopefully giving people lots of helpful information, but
Yeah.
it's a huge stressor. And things, meetings, everything in my calendar
Yeah.
causes me stress on some level, even if it's positive.
Yeah.
And the more
Yeah.
that's in there, the worse I know, the worse I get. And my
Yeah.
problem, I don't know if you, when the last time I properly saw you, we were at your house for a barbecue with your parents.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
that was
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
But so my off switch, which I'm very open about with all my clients as well,
Yeah.
is generally alcohol,
Yeah.
which is terrible, but just because it quietens my brain finally.
Mm. Yeah.
And I know that's not a healthy reason. I do enjoy it, and I also find it soulful, hanging out with friends and relaxing and talking
Hmm.
about non-work things and
Yeah.
chilling out.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
it's good because I'm mindful of it.
Yeah. I
But
think everyone
yeah,
has something like that that can help calm them. And again, like it's all about the dosage. It was actually really interesting. The psychologist asked me, she was like, oh, how do you go with caffeine? I was like, oh, I have a coffee and my brain goes calm. And but
Yeah.
I have a little bit too much and I'm like a hyperactive puppy who can't be controlled. Like I have all the energy. But yeah, it's really interesting. Caffeine like really calms my brain and there's different things that help people, but again, it's like that dosage. But it's really interesting. So actually
I love coffee and I feel the same.
yeah, when you came
Interesting.
over when my parents were there, that was actually during COVID times. It was my parents got stuck
It
here for
was,
seven.
wasn't it? It must have been.
Yeah, they got stuck here
Yeah.
for 7 months. And we realized that our alcohol consumption went right up. And I didn't realize, it took me a long time to realize that because you're with your parents, you're having a good time. You might have like a bottle of
Yeah.
wine might get opened at dinner because you're spending time with your family. And because we didn't get to see them so often, we made the most of seeing them.
Yeah.
And so these little
Yeah.
things kept on niggling up. So I started getting a bit of eczema on my wrists, which I'd never had before. And I just was waking up just feeling like a little bit like meh. And I remember going to the doctor and just being like, hi, can I get some bloods? I just think there's something going on. I just can't put my finger on it. And he was asking me all these questions, and they have to go through the standard, like how much do you drink? And I was like, oh, not that often. And he was like, okay, put a number on it. I was like, I might have a drink on a weekend. I might have a glass on either a Saturday or Sunday. And then I suddenly sat back and I thought about it, and I was like, oh my God, we've been having dinner with my parents on a
Drinks
Tuesday.
every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God. And that was a huge wake up call. But the benefits I was seeing from
It's
being
the
relaxed.
inflammation it can cause, isn't it, as well?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's the
crazy.
inflammation and then the sleep, and because your liver's detoxing during your sleep. And
Right.
this is a conversation I have to have with lots of women in
Oh
their
yeah.
50s because it starts
Yeah.
to affect you more at that
Yeah.
age. And it's yeah, it's the raised enzymes in your liver going
Hmm.
through the detoxification process wakes you up with anxiety at 3 a.m.,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
lots of women don't know.
Yeah. And I kind of thought, like I'm a healthy person, I know what I'm doing. And so that's sometimes you do need someone else to zoom out and be like, okay, like, really? Do
When you
you?
have to admit it to a doctor. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh God.
Yeah.
So Laura, do you still drink alcohol at all? Have you quit? Because that's very
I
trendy.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I have thought about it though. My role at the moment is I do only have a drink on the weekends because I do find that it
Yeah.
really affects my concentration. Um, and I do really struggle with it. And it's definitely something I would consider, but it's really interesting. I had this conversation with a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in the wine industry, and alcohol is like a
Yeah.
big part of this region. So if I do have a drink now, I'm trying to make sure it is something like I really enjoy, like a good wine that I can make sure I'm sitting and like being really present with it. Um, in the past, like, back in the university days, that might have been a slightly different story.
Absolutely. Where did you go to university? Remind me.
I was at Oxford Brookes in the UK.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that
Yeah,
would have been a fun time.
yeah, it was a great
Yeah.
time. I was very lucky. I was riding horses at the same time as going through university, so I had to be close to home so I could still keep up that part of my career and ride horses around being at uni. But yeah, Oxford Brookes is pretty notorious for having a good time. So
Isn't it?
yeah, came out of university with a health degree, but probably not the healthiest person. So I had to really like turn my shit around when I came out of university.
You and me both. Did you gain weight at uni?
I
Was
did.
that just
Yeah,
me?
yeah, I did. No,
Yeah. I think
I
that's pretty
think,
standard, isn't it?
yeah, I had a great time. I probably met some of the best friends. And it was really interesting, like especially with osteopathy, I don't think I was sold on it at that time. And with like the whole ADHD thing, if I'm like fully in, I'm in. But if I'm not convinced, I might kind of sit half back and really not put the full effort in. And I think it was because the osteopathy that we were taught and just didn't quite align with me at that time. There was definitely like a missing factor in it. And I think I just had to go through that learning process and find out what I enjoyed more, and it was kind of bringing that strength training aspect into it. Um, and yeah, and then
I
so
love
once
that
I
because
find
that's
that,
another thing about ADHD actually.
hmm
If you're focused, if you want to be there, if you're excited, if you're interested, you're fine.
yeah,
If you're
yeah,
doing something that's full of friction and you don't want to be there, it
yeah,
feels incredibly freaking hard,
yeah,
really hard.
yeah. And I
Mm.
think that has been a big thing for me in terms of growing my career. So osteos are known for being quite holistic and very much hands-on. And so using things like massage, mobilizations, adjustments, and which is great. And there's definitely a time and a place for it. But we do need to give our patients that next stage of care. And I just felt like in our industry there wasn't enough of that. And I wanted to kind of help create that. And I think once I felt confident in that, I could just like roll with it and run with it. And
I
yeah,
love it because
so
it's scary, but it's pioneering. It's
yeah,
scary, but it's so cool. It makes total sense to me. Golly.
Y- Yeah.
Yeah,
So then I kind of like was like, right, this is really my passion. Because when I came out of uni, I think I was like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Like, I don't think I'm amazing at it. But I think it was just like I wasn't fully committed. I wasn't putting the full effort in
you
because it
knew
just
that there could be
wasn't.
more.
Yeah, I knew there could be more and I could treat in a way that I wanted to manage patients. And it took me a few years to figure out, and I'm still figuring out to this day. Um, and I do think there is quite a lot to change within our industry, as there is in any industry, but also to educate like a lot of other providers about what I do as well. Um, like I had a patient come in who had been seeing me, and we sent him to his GP just to make sure we could get some scans, to rule out anything that might be more sinister. And his GP sent him to a physio. And anyway, patient comes back to me and was like, I'm not really sure why he did that because I went to the physio and they gave me exactly the same thing that you gave me. So the doctor had tried to send him to the physio so he would get more rehabilitation, but he didn't realize that that was something that I could also offer. Um, so
You
I
don't fit in
think,
a box, you see, which is going to be
y-
tricky.
yeah,
You
so
don't
I
fit in a
think,
box for them.
yeah, I think it's really important to kind of educate and spread the words on what we can do. But I always think it comes down to the practitioner and what they can offer. Because there are physios who do more hands-on, there are osteos that do more rehab, and the lines are getting blurred. We're all crossing over, and
Yeah,
that can be pretty tricky.
it can be tricky. There's, well, they
Mm.
reckon 2025 is a big year for change for lots of
Yeah,
people. So, and I think
yeah,
it's exciting that you're pushing that forward.
yeah.
So Laura, we're nearly an hour.
Oh my goodness.
Um, I want to finish off with some takeaway desserts. So, if you had to give people a few takeaways on what you do based on what you see in clinic, so
Mm,
for example, your typical customer,
yeah.
what would you love them to do?
So I think, especially if I have a patient who's coming in, I want them to be able to understand what's going on. And this can also apply if you go and see any other practitioner. We want you to be able to explain what's going on to a friend. And if we don't have a diagnosis for you yet, then you need to be able to explain three things that you can do to help get yourself better. So if we don't have a diagnosis yet as a practitioner, we should at least be giving you three things to move your health forward. And I think that's so important.
Love that.
So that's my
Yeah,
biggest tip for patients. And I think it's also finding the right practitioner for you. I think it is always okay to get a second opinion. If you want to make a big change, it does take quite a lot of coaching. And sometimes you've got to get a personality to meet that. So make sure you are with a practitioner who matches your values. And I'd probably say my final thing is, especially for females and like that kind of 50 plus range, is yeah, just reinforcing that point of how important muscle mass is, and moving is for the body. And a lot of people are so afraid of moving, and that pain doesn't always equal damage. Um, those two can be really
Yes.
tricky. So people will often not move because they're in pain. And if we can get the education out there about what pain is, what is safe to move through, we can stop patients circling within the system. So that's probably my three main
I love
takeaways.
that. Yeah, amen to that. Building more muscle, keeping muscle as you age because it all starts to disappear. Guys, keeping your protein high and also that's a huge factor. And like Laura said, like just moving your body. I always
Mm,
talk to clients about choosing your hard, right? So, like
mm,
you said, it might feel painful, so you don't exercise. A walk up a hill feels really, really hard the first time you do it. But
mhm.
holy shit, will your muscles, your heart, and your grandkids in 20 years thank you?
Yeah.
I reckon, anyway. Yeah, it's having that
Yeah.
long term view, hey?
Yeah. Long-term view is so
Okay, I
important.
will long term, not a quick fix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, Laura, for your time.
Thank you,
Laura, if
Amy.
people want to find out more about you, um, where can they find you? I'll include links in the show notes.
Amazing. So we have a website which is www.therecoveryproject.co.nz. You can also find us on Instagram at the Recovery Project NZ. Those are the best places to get in touch, or you can flick me an email, which is Laura at the Recovery Project. Um, and I am on social media quite a lot, so feel free to, yeah, shoot me any DMs if you have any questions about how we can get in touch.
Exciting. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys, for listening. See you
Amazing.
soon. Bye.